Danke, Uli. Yeah, hello and welcome. My name is Adam and welcome again to the webinar series From Data to Insights with SAP. In this session, my colleague Pranav and I would like to present to you how to orchestrate your enterprise data with SAP Data Intelligence. So let's have a quick look on the content. Now we could talk for hours about this topic, but we have compromised it to the most essential information about data intelligence, and we will conclude our session around about 35 to 40 minutes. We will start with a short introduction, then we will have a quick look on why we need data analytics in the first place and machine learning. Then Pranav will talk a little bit of the challenges and what actually SAP Data Intelligence do. Yeah? We will continue with a short overview about the services that we provide for it, and then Pranav will again do a quick live demo because showing is always better than telling. After that, we will conclude with a Q&A session where you have plenty of time to ask your question. All right, let's start with the introduction. Pranav, would you like to start?
Yeah, Adam, thank you. So my name is Pranav Kanpal. I have close to 10 years of working experience with diverse SAP technologies like SAP Business Warehouse, BW on HANA, Native HANA, and I worked a lot with big data integration with HANA. And also currently I'm working with S4 HANA integration projects. And mainly in the last 4 to 5 years of my career, I've been working intensively with the SAP Cloud Platform with special focus on analytics and machine learning. And also during this phase, I've been involved with solution architecture roles for client projects on DI, data intelligence. And currently I'm also leading the capability for DI in Atos, Germany. So that's me in a nutshell. And I would hand over now to you, Adam.
All right, thank you, Pranav. My name is Adam Kozak. I'm a offering manager for SAP Analytics at Atos, and I mainly support a solution architect for all SAP Analytics related topics like data intelligence, BW for HANA, HANA native data lakes, and a strong focus on the SAP Cloud Platform. Similar to Pranav, I have a strong BW background, but since a couple of years, I put my eyes on advanced analytics. So okay, now that we have the introductions, let's have a quick look. Why do we need advanced analytics and machine learning in the first place? Yeah, so the digital transformation and market disruption through startups is a potential driver, or maybe you have an upcoming S4 transformation and want to generate new insights out of your existing data for future business processes. At the end, it comes down to creating the so-called analytic flywheel. Yeah, what's behind it? Let's do an example. Imagine, in this case, you're an airline. Yeah, you think about KPIs that drive or impact your business the most, like, for example, ticket prices, scheduling, customer loyalty, and so on. Yeah? So this is why you kind of choose to start to do analytics. Yeah, you focus on kind of things like price optimization, demand forecasting, micro-targeting for your clients, and so on. Now, this leads to meaningful impact to your business, yeah, increasing, for example, revenue per passenger mile and so on, which leads to more users, which leads to more data that you can analyze and make your analytics better. Yeah? So at the end, this can be applied for both for customer-facing systems and for your own data that you have in your own enterprise. And customer-facing, you have customers outside of your organization, and with internal data, you have your business people working with the data. And in order to enable such a flywheel, you need efficient data management. But there is a challenge with that. Yeah? So we see this. Let's have a look how reality looks like. Yeah? So we see that 85% of the proof of concept regarding machine learning make it to production. Most of our clients struggle with the complexity of AI, with the lifecycle management, and there's a shortage of skills required in order to cover these things. Yeah, so Pranav will talk a little bit more about these challenges in the next section.
All right. Thanks, Adam. As explained in a nutshell by you, that we live in a world full of data, but what exactly would be the point of having data when it's meaningless? And probably this is where the starting point of data analytics and machine learning came into picture, and this has gained a lot of traction. But as easy as all of this may sound, there are a lot of challenges that data management has to offer. And there are few challenges like, for example, the integration of data where we work with, let's say, a lot of data which is structured, there's data which is non-structured, and we're actually talking about data which can be in images, blobs, talking about relational databases, non-relational databases, and so on. And doing this integration into one platform is a bit challenging. Then comes the processing of data. So, and let's say we have the needs of processing data over different engines. For example, we might need to do some processing over, for example, Python as a language, or maybe R servers or JavaScript. And let's say having all of these different heterogeneous engines into one platform is again another challenge. Then comes the metadata information or the discovery of data. We get a lot of, let's say, requests from our clients where they want to see information about the data. So the data about the data, which is like the metadata, and try to find more meaning out of this, so find semantics out of it. And also the tools currently available don't really provide too much insights into it. So that's also one more threat. And then comes the quality of data. So when we talk about particularly machine learning, no matter how good the data is, like no matter how the volume of the data is, and no matter how good the algorithm that we choose, as long as the quality of the data is not good, the consistency of the machine learning model will not be too optimal. So to make the best out of it, we have to remove all of these inconsistencies and remove the, let's say, make better profiles out of the data. And probably this is vitally important from a machine learning perspective. Then comes the compliance, where let's say we talk about landscapes in today's world where we see frequent flow of data between different systems and maybe, let's say, on-premise environment to cloud, and then we need to keep a track of this flow. So this is where the data lineage comes into picture. And even if it's internally, like within the system, then it's still required to keep a flow of this for auditing purpose. And that's why compliance is very, very critical. And then last but probably not the least, the operational part, where let's say the modern IT landscapes are becoming, more and more dynamic when we talk about the elasticity, where there is need of scaling up, scaling down, and so on. And therefore this provides, let's say, another threat. So let's move on to the next slide, where we look at how DI can help to solve these challenges and stand as one point solution. Yeah, so with DI, the integration of data is very seamless, and it provides a single platform where you can deal with multiples, or I would say any kind of data. Then comes the reusability of engine. So what DI offers is that it provides with processing different engines or for processing data based on the need of the hour. So it can process maybe, let's say, something with Python. If you want to do something with R, you have JavaScript, and there's so many more engines available which can be used for processing, and that kind of is very interesting. Then it provides an operational freedom. So maybe from a machine learning perspective, for example, if you want to scale up or scale down, or maybe from the deployment perspective of the model, it can be done easily. And maybe the governing of the whole life cycle of the model is pretty dynamic and has been made very easy within the tool. Regarding the quality of the data, there is an out-of-box application called the Metadata Management provided by DI, which helps a lot in doing this data discovery, where you want to find the data about the data, information on the metadata, then you want to prepare this data for the purpose of enhancing, and also the governance becomes pretty good. Then comes the last point about any cloud or on-premise. So from the deployment perspective of DI, it can be anything. It can be cloud or it can be on-premise, and we can take a look at this later, and has been defined pretty well in the later slides. And well, to be honest, I've been speaking a lot of theory. Let's move over to the next slide, where Adam will present a small data use case. So over to you, Adam, then.
So unmuting takes a couple seconds. Thanks, Pranav. So basically, as Pranav explained, let's do a quick example. Yeah, imagine you have identified a data use case, meaning let's imagine you try to predict employee turnover, employee churn, people leaving your company. In order to create something like that, you need to connect from different systems. You need different data. For example, maybe you have a SuccessFactors or Workday system running, there you need to extract data. You have a service system running, which is outside of your complete enterprise picture or enterprise architecture, like for example, Qualtrics or any other survey platform. Maybe you have a company portal running where people can quote, and you need to analyze if people are writing a lot of negative stuff in there, which might indicate they are really unhappy with the company. And of course, you have your ERP system, or if you're in S4HANA, you have your HR data there, like the salaries and promotions and stuff like that. So this is your data. Then you need a platform where you can kind of train a machine learning model. Meaning a classification tree or random forest or whatever. So one machine learning algorithm takes this data and predicts if somebody has a possibility or probability to leaving the company. And the last step is you need to integrate this in your business process, meaning, for example, you want to show this probability of somebody leaving as soon as you open the employee profile in your workforce management solution, like, for example, success factors. So let's have a look on the second, next slide. So this is where SAP Data Intelligence comes into play. Here, we have a technology level overview of where the data from our previous example comes from. Yeah, you have your S4, you have your SAP Cloud software where you might use the success factors. You have non-subsystems like the survey portal and so on. The key strength of DI is that it provides data orchestration capabilities for all these data sources, may it be a sub or non-subsystem, plus providing you the governance capability. Pranav will now explain the solution a little bit in more detail.
Perfect. So thanks, Adam. In this slide, basically, we see a very high-level architecture of data intelligence. And what we see on the left and on the right side are the different connectors. And on the bottom is something mentioned about Kubernetes. So let's rather break these things down one by one. And I would say, what exactly are connectors would be the first question. And connectors, basically, let's say DI as a platform comes with a strong pre-built connectivity options, and the connection between, let's say, two different systems would require a custom connector, like maybe a JDBC connector, ODBC connector, maybe some RFC connectivity, and so on. So, for example, if you would want to connect a Hadoop system which is running to, let's say, maybe a system running on the cloud, maybe on GCP or AWS, then to do these connectivity, you would require some custom drivers. But in the case of DI, what the tool provides is that there is no need to create these operate connectors manually, but the connectors come pre-built with the tool, and they are just, let's say, a few clicks away, and you just have to go click on few buttons, and the connectivity between these different environments will be maintained easily. And in the demo later on, we can take a look at this. And since we talked about the connectors, what I would like to point out is on the left side are the specific operators that SAP has created primarily for the purpose of integration of ABAP and BW. So they've worked intensively with the ABAP integration, and currently with the ABAP integration, we can connect to S4HANA, we can connect to S4HANA Cloud, and also the SAP NetWeaver ECC version. So I think there has to be an DMS add-on, and the version is, I think, 2018 onwards it's supported, but currently we're running on 2019, and that's the most suitable one, which is suggested by SAP as well. So with the ABAP integration, there are features like SLT, so you can read data with the SLT and transform, let's say, push your data from the ABAP stack into DI and do whatever you'd want to do with it. And similarly, with the BW integration, there are connectors available to connect to the standard BW for HANA systems or SAP BV systems. But not only can you connect to the SAP systems, but on the right side, we have different connectors which can connect to the standard systems, like maybe you want to connect to a Hadoop system, or you want to connect to S3 buckets within AWS, or be it GCP, or be it, yeah. So the options that are there are a lot, and which is kind of very nice, and they perform pretty well as well. And also what's interesting are the SAP Cloud Platform connectors, where there is connectivity via the business hub for APIs, and there is SAP Cloud integration, and there are a couple of open connectors which SAP has provided. But on the bottoms, which is like the lower part where we see Kubernetes, this is more like completely based on the architecture of Kubernetes. And for a better, let's say, understanding, we can move over to the next slide. Adam, can you please move to the next slide? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so SAP DI as a service is running on top of Kubernetes. And to put Kubernetes into few words, it's an open source platform for managing containerized services. So this is like a service which was initially made by a couple of young guys within Google and came up as a project, but then it's available as an open source platform. And since Kubernetes is an open source platform, it can be deployed either on-premise system or it can be deployed over public or private cloud. So what we see here are a few options with on-premise installation for SAP DI, and there is an option which is completely managed by SAP. So within the standard SAP Cloud Platform, the Cloud Foundry Edition, there is SAP DI coming up as a service. So what we have to do is we just have to go to SAP Cloud Platform. We have to click through a few buttons, and the service becomes available. So it's just one button click away. Let's say the installation runs in the background, and once it's installed, it becomes available as an application, and it can be opened via a URL. And in case you want to do some, let's say, enhancement to the existing CPUs, for example, if you want to change something within the Kubernetes environment, this is unfortunately not possible because this is fully managed by the SAP systems. And if you want, SAP, and if you want to do something, then we have to raise ticket with the standard SAP ticketing way, and they would increase this based on the request. Then comes the other option of on-premise installation. With the on-premise installation, we have options doing this on OpenShift, OpenSUSE, and Cisco. So this would, let's say, depends on your needs. So if you just don't want to move out of the network of your client network, so you can do this with the on-premise installation. However, if you're comfortable with doing something with, let's say, on the public cloud, then the Kubernetes services running on Google Cloud, maybe AWS, on Azure or Alibaba Cloud can be used. So what we have within Atos internally, we created a DI installation for Kubernetes on top of Google Cloud. And the last option is also, let's say, there is an option of doing this over private cloud, which can be over virtual stream. So this should be it from the details on this installation. And now let's take a look over the service portfolios that we have at Atos. And I would request Adam to please talk more about this in detail.
Okay, thanks, Pranav. We as Atos provide three kinds of services for the data intelligence. The first one, maybe you have joined one of our earlier data to insight sessions, is the data readiness consulting, where we identify your data use cases, kind of define a missing data strategy or redefine a data strategy if you want, and kind of think about, okay, how can we scale this from a business process perspective? What kind of platform and interlinking technologies do we need? What do we need to do regarding people, security, how to set up a governance and operations, and kind of start with pilots and build and scale out through the organization. If you don't need that, we have modular services as well. Like, for example, the DI enablement. This is kind of, for example, imagine that what Pranav discussed earlier, you want to set up something on AWS or Azure on your on-premise hardware, and you need help. There we help you with setting up DI, integrating the ABAP stack, integrating BW, connecting with standard connectors to the cloud or to other system running in your data center. Come up with a kind of architecture consulting and operational model for the platform. And as soon as this is running, we have our third services which help you with designing the required data pipelines, like, for example, the one in our example, kind of showing you how to gather the data, how to kind of pre-compile it to make it ready for data analytics, to design the required processing concepts, and set up a monitor overview. So much for the overview. Now it's time to kind of do a live demo. So because showing is always better than telling, and we will switch from my presentation to Pranav, and he will show you the system. So Uli, can you please?
Perfect.
Pranav,
Thank
you
you.
should be able to share now. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sharing now. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Perfect. So what I have opened here is the launchpad for data intelligence. And how it looks like is there are a couple of tiles which are available, which let's say this is the standard Fiori view that SAP went ahead with. But in general, these are different applications which are running within the DI as services. So these are like separate application, each one of them. So there are a lot of things like with machine learning. So there's like the auto ML option, there is ML data manager, then there is scenario manager and things like this. But apart from this, what's really interesting is this connection management, where you can do the specification for managing connections. Then there is a section primarily for doing the metadata part, which is this Metadata Explorer, which is very interesting. And there is a possibility of doing the modular. So this was mentioned also in the slide where Adam was presenting. So this is like where the main pipelines are. So these pipelines are basically I would say I would explain this later because this would maybe be more interesting when we see it. So when we click any one of them, so it just opens up another application. So if I click this would open up application for the connection. So within the connection management, this basically launches a new pod. So pod is like a terminology for Kubernetes, and it takes a while to open, but the moment it becomes, let's say, open up, what we see here is, give me a second. On the plus side here, with this plus option, we can create connections. And what we can see here, these are different connections that we already have created within our DI instance. So there is a connection with BW system. There is a connection with GCP, for example. Then there is a connection with a lot of different ABAP systems. So also if I click on this plus option, this lets us go into and look at different options that are available to create. So for the connection type, there are like options like, for example, ABAP, then there is Microsoft Azure Data Lake Storage. Then, for example, you can also go to the SQL DB of Azure. Then there is the standard BW, cloud integration, cloud platform integration. Then a lot of GCP over here, like PubSub, if you want to go, or if you want to go over to BigQuery and things with Google Cloud Storage. Then the standard HANA, like the Access application, the extended services, or the databases. Then this thing is pretty interesting. So you can directly connect to a HDFS file system and write to the specific file system of your Hadoop instance if you have any. Then the standard HTTP connectivity is also supported. Then there is like the Kafka cluster, which can also be connected. Then, yeah, but the options are a lot and they are pretty interesting. And like I said, there is no need for creating any custom connection in case of DI. So you can just click through it. So if, for example, if I just select maybe, yeah, let's go to ABAP. So if you want to connect to an ABAP system, we go to ABAP. Yeah, then they are separate, like each of the connection would require its own sort of things that you have to provide. For example, with the ABAP system, the system ID, the host name, the port number, and so on. And since we are connected, since this is like a cloud version, there are separate options that you have to select, like if you want to connect via HTTPS, RFC, WebSocket, and so on. And this basically the type of connection detail changes on the type of the connection. So if we have something with, for example, Azure SQL DB, this would change. So this is completely dependent on the type of connection it has. So it's pretty dynamic. And once this connection is created, it becomes available as a connection in the connection management that I had opened this before. So it can be tested if the connection is working. So you have to go here. For example, if I go to Data Lake and check the status, it will just go and see what the status is. If it's working, it will show tick as okay. If it's not working, then it will throw the exact error which is being caused. Then what's interesting is also this Metadata Explorer. If I click on this, it will open up another application. And this takes a while to open, and to save time, I've just opened it all. So here there are a couple of options like browsing the connection, taking a look at the catalog, taking a look at the data set and the preparation. So when we go on the browse connection option, it basically shows up this sort of, I would rather go in here. Maybe it will take a while to open, but let's wait a bit. So this gives a proper structure of all the different systems that are available. So here we have a BW system that we connected to, we have a HANA system, then we have all of these different ABAP systems. What's interesting is we can go into each of these systems, and what it will show is all of this information about these systems. So if I go into an ABAP system, it will give me the information about the ABAP system, the different tables in the system. And by this, what is interesting is that we can look into the metadata information. But the extraction would not work here because this is just for reading the metadata and that's it. For extraction, we have to go into the modeler, but let's take a look at that later. And similarly for BW systems, we can go into this BW system. If I click into it, it will take a lot of time to load. But the moment it gets loaded, it will pop up all of this information about, let's say, queries, about info providers, data sources, and so on. If I go inside this, it will provide info about what are the different data sources, and so on. And with DI comes a specific feature called this data lake where the data can be stored. And we can go into this, it's like a file structure, so you can provide your own location, go through external storages, shared storage. So with like these file structures, we can create our own structure. So if I want to create a new file, I can just click on new folder and create my own location. What I already did was I opened a file which is currently available. And what's interesting is that it's profile. By profile, it means that it's capable of giving the more detailed information about this specific data set. So when it will open up, what it will show here is the different columns that are available. So it's like row number, customer ID, surname, and so on. But also it gives like what is the maximum and the minimum value. For example, this has 1 to I think 10,000 and so on for all of these. But along with it, it also provides this percentage which says that this much percentage is the null value, this much percentage of value is blank, this much percentage is 0. And this becomes very helpful when we want to improve the quality of the data for machine learning. And for example, if I click on, let's say, this field which is called the geography. So here on the right, it gives up the total percentage of value for Germany. So it says I think 25% of data is for Germany, 24% is for Spain, and 50% is for France. Yeah. So this way you can also have a distinct value, and also in case if there are more values, I think it shows top 10 values as well. So yeah, here it's giving the top 10% of values. So this also becomes pretty handy when you want to discover information about the data. What's also interesting with Metadata Explorer is this browse the catalog part where we can go into different catalogs which are either predefined or gets generated as the data is loaded. So for example, there are predefined data types. So you can see that, give me a second. Yeah, there are data types like Boolean, date, numeric. Yeah, and if you want to see that if any of my file has a data type like Boolean, so then I can add a filter called add this as a filter. And what it will do is that it will try to find it will go through all the files and try to figure out this data type. So currently there is no file which has Boolean data type. That's why it doesn't show anything. And similarly, there are more things like there is location. So I think this was automatically generated by all of our data, probably the data that we loaded. So it maybe it would give about latitude, longitude, and so on and so forth. So we can do the filters here as well. And this was, let's say, the Metadata Explorer. I will close this for now, and I will go over to the third part. And this is basically where most of the things are happening. So this is like the modular. When we click on this, it will open up this specific page. And this is the most interesting, I would say, part of DI, because most of the things that happen here. So here on the left side is the options of graphs. Graphs are nothing but these are the pipelines that basically define the flow of DI. So for example, if you want to connect, let's say, a Hadoop system to read data, and you want to, after reading the data, write this data to let's say a Google Cloud. So in this case, I already opened a pipeline which is something visible like this, and in the steps there is like read input file, then there is some processing happening, and this is like a Python operator that's doing the processing. And in the last step, this is like the write file, which writes the data to somewhere. So in the read input, if we go here, there is like configuration options available. So with the configuration options, we can select the connections and change the connection to whatever we like. So the connection management basically will pop us back to the connection that we'd created. And here it will show us all the different connections that are available within. So in our case, we have these options. And let's say if I choose this data lake of DI and I save it, so what it will do is it will read the data from this DI data lake. I can do some processing here, and when I want to write my file, finally after the processing, I can again go here, do the connection, and let's say change the connection, and maybe I can choose GCP. So yeah, connection management again. And in this case, if I choose GCP, which was available, so what it would do is it would read data from this DI data lake from here. Yeah, it would read from here, do some processing, and write the data to the Google Cloud Platform. But similarly, if there were other connections available, like a Hadoop connection or maybe a connection to an S3 bucket in AWS, then it would show the specific connections here. Apart from that, there are already a lot of different graphs available which have been provided by SAP in this tool, which are like the default example graphs. So, and if I go into this in detail, this will take a lot of time because there are like a lot of different options. So there are like specific scenarios. For example, this is an ABAP example for SLT to file. What happens when you open this is like this is reading data via the SLT connector, doing some conversion, doing some processing, and writing the data into the specific file location you want. So in case you would want to read data from your ABAP system and write it to maybe, let's say Hadoop, just take the easiest example. And in this case, it would read data, stream the data via SLT, and with this write operation, it can directly stream data into a Hadoop file system. And similarly, there are things like you can do the same with CDS, you can write it to Kafka, or you can write it to a file. And there are options for HANA, then there is a lot with Vora, because Vora is also provided as a DB with DI. Then there are a lot of things with JavaScript, then there is R server, then there is Node.js. And the possibility here is a lot. And I would say we can talk on hours about this, but what's also interesting here with the connectivity is that there are REST API capabilities available, so you can connect via HTTPS and execute your graphs, and they would enable reading data, let's say, via a RESTful process. And also, I think what's really interesting in the bottom is the standard machine learning Leonardo portfolio of DI. So this, of SAP. So this comes enabled here. So there are a lot of things within image classification or maybe with similarity scoring. And I think there are also things about couple of things with TensorFlow, which is like one of the most important libraries used with machine learning. But in case you don't want to do these and you want to create your own custom machine learning scenarios, then we can either go to these parts, which are let's say the machine learning scenario manager or ML data manager, where we can do some customization. They are like I would be maybe too technical, but they are like standard Jupyter notebooks where we can go and code and maybe deploy models and so on. What's also interesting on the left are like the operators that come handy. So the operators are like these small little things available here. So each operator, like this read file is one operator, then this processing data is one operator. And there are like a lot of operators which are available. So there are ABAP operators, and there are a lot for connectivity where you can connect to, this is like a service for PubSub in Google. So it would do the production of this, and maybe something for HANA client, maybe something for, MQTT and so on. And these operators are either predefined. If you're happy with them, it's good. If you're not, then there is also an option of creating an operator. So I think here you can click on press this create operator button and do the custom, let's say, implementation to maybe you want to write something in Python or maybe in JavaScript. You can do it, and in the end you can save this, and it becomes available globally for everybody who has access to this tenant. But I would say this should be it for now, because we can go on and on, Adam, right?
Yeah, so as Pranav mentioned, we could talk for hours. There are plenty of options in here, and you're really flexible with the solution, and going through each of them would kind of, I think, take a week at least. But Pranav, I think this concludes our session, and you are now welcome to ask your questions, or maybe we already have some questions which we can start to answer now.
Ja, okay, vielen Dank, Adam. Vielen Dank, Pranav. Wir haben tatsächlich einige Fragen reinbekommen. Manche auf Deutsch, manche auf Englisch. Ich versuche die auf Deutsch jetzt direkt mal für euch auch auf Englisch on the fly zu übersetzen. Erste Frage: We are interested in the platform, but we struggle to come up with the business cases to justify the investment for the platform.
All right, so this is always a topic that we see. So this is we had this portfolio slides overview, a good question is, and then kind of to start with an awareness workshop within our data readiness assessment. So this is crucial, yeah, because we've seen a lot of examples where clients try to answer these questions from a technology perspective by providing a platform without thinking what actually provides business, or if there's a case for a platform like that. Yeah? So you don't need DI in all cases. Yeah, so it kind of depends on the available technology there from premise, or maybe you're good with data services from SAP. But we can help you there. So the data readiness assessment in our portfolio is a good starting point if you're stuck in this stage.
Okay, next question. Does SAP DI store data, and where is my data stored?
Yeah, so SAP DI has the capability of storing data. As I showed before, there is like a semantic data lake, they call it. So this is like the data lake of DI. And when DI is being created, so with SAP standard implementation, it's automatically created by SAP, and it's like you have the option of choosing the type of storage you'd want. And usually it's on the S3 buckets and the data is stored there. But in case we are doing a custom implementation, so there are options of choosing any kind of your own choice. So in case it's on the cloud, then you can choose the storage on maybe Google Cloud or on AWS, yeah, or Microsoft, or anything of your choice. Or in case it's in, let's say, completely hardcore on-premise installation, then it can be anything of any storage option of your choice. And in that case, the data, let's say this DI data lake becomes available once it's configured, and then the data can directly be written to it and read from it.
Right, for the on-premise, it's only dependent on which platform you deploy. For example, if you choose OpenShift, then you are obviously limited to what OpenShift provides. Yeah, so I think there's OCS storage, which is supported by Data Intelligence as well. Yeah, so there's kind of, it's limited to the platform that you choose. Yeah, if you use OpenSUSE container platform, then you need to choose what the platform, the Kubernetes underneath Kubernetes platform is supporting. But there's plenty of options available on premise as well.
Okay, we have another question for on-premise. Question is, can we connect SAP ERP on-premise systems to the SAP DI cloud version as well?
Yeah, so the ERP systems can be connected to the SAP DI on cloud. So there is like a limitation of the service. So there are like DMIS add-ons, so they have to be enabled. So that this I think this DMIS 2018 is the basic requirement. And going ahead, I think SAP recently launched the 2019, which is the most stable version, so SP19. So if we go ahead with this, there is an option to connect to the SAP DI on cloud. But to do this, we have to also enable the SAP Cloud Connector. So via the Cloud Connector, it's pretty much stable and I would say very secure, because it's completely HTTPS via the tunnel of SAP Cloud Connector. But in case the Cloud Connector is missing from the architecture of, let's say, the IT landscape, then there is also an option of using a VPN connectivity. But for this, then we would still need a separate VPN server via which the data can be routed.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. We have a data lake running on Azure. Do we still need SAP DI?
Yeah, it depends. So the strong suit of data intelligence is really orchestrating data. Yeah? So if you're on Azure, yeah, obviously there are solutions like Azure Data Factory, yeah, which also provides connectivity to subsystems. The last time I checked, but the really strong suit of data intelligence is you've seen it in a connectivity tab is, as per my knowledge, it's the only solution that provides native IRC connectivity to subsystems. So maybe ERP or S4HANA or BW on HANA, which puts a lot of speed into extracting data. Yeah? So, and if you're on solutions on AWS, like AWS Glue or on Azure Data Factory, then you're always limited to this HTTPS or data extraction approach, which comes with limiting the amount of data you can extract with one extraction, and so on. Yeah? So That's one case maybe where you can use data intelligence. Right? Data intelligence always makes sense if you have a landscape where you have a mixture where you need to integrate data from different sources like Oracle databases, data lakes that may be in the cloud or on premise, or you have Hadoop systems. So if you have a diverse system landscape, there's this strong suit of data intelligence for an orchestration point of view, or integrating it in your business processes. Like, for example, in the example that we showed with the success factors, where you say, okay, I have 60% of my data is coming out of SAP, and I just need to integrate data. Maybe that's coming from an IoT live case or something, or Kafka broker. And what I want to do, or the process to happen in a Fiori app that's running in a usual S/4HANA process, there's where the AI may become handy for you. So I don't think that you can realize something like this with Azure yet, if you have an Azure Data Lake.
Okay, thank you. Just a few seconds ago, I got another question. Can I code with ABAP in the platform?
With DI, ABAP coding is not an option, so this has been limited by SAP. So there are different, let's say, coding platform available, but ABAP is not one of them. But still, in case there is a need of, let's say, coding in ABAP due to some business requirement, then SAP provides, I would say SAP DI provides with a custom option of connecting, let's say, creating a custom operator which can connect to the specific system where the ABAP, let's say, implementation has been done. And they are like BADI sort of implementation via which you can go into this specific system and read data and, let's say, execute your ABAP via this. So there are, like, I would say, workarounds for this.